Hello YouTube, this is a video going over my final thoughts of Path of Exile 3.27, Keepers of the Flame League. The main feature of this league is the new, reworked Breach, and the various mechanics that go along with it. I only played one character this league, the Righteous Fire Chieftain, but I achieved level 100 and 36 out of 40 challenges, so I got the whole cosmetic armor set unlock. I've also obtained a Mage Blood, I've spent hundreds of divines in my character, and I also have 100 divines left over. So, I'm pretty satisfied I've had my fill for the league, and it's time to give my opinion on it. It looks like the retention of this league is pretty low, among the lowest in recent times. Many players have already quit. Keepers is 1% off from being the worst player retention of the last 3 years. Why could that be? Well, the campaign was smooth enough. As usual, not much to say different there. The new Breach mechanic appears quickly in the campaign. Right from the first quest, a giant purple wall shows up and makes you interact with it to proceed. The mechanic continues to randomly show up as you progress through the campaign, in the form of these big purple walls that spam the entire screen and disappear as you run into them. It's honestly very cluttery and spammy, and I don't really like how it looks and how it ruins visual clarity even further in a game with severe visual clarity issues. Although I didn't really interact much with the mechanic in the campaign, because I usually tend to avoid league mechanics during the campaign, which is also something that the community in general seems to do, as it feels like league mechanics start to really become impactful and meaningful around early mapping, and ignoring them in the campaign is usually the most efficient move. As soon as you reach the endgame mapping is when the new league mechanics really start to be enticing though. The tree works by collecting blood inside maps or in the campaign by doing the breach mechanics. So you're collecting blood, and then you can teleport to a separate area where you can customize passives on this tree to spawn various items. Every map you do spawns a breach mechanic. There's 3 possible ones that can show up at random. There's a defense encounter, a Hive fortress encounter, which is a giant longer defense encounter, or there's a more traditional breach where it slowly opens a big circle and you have to kill enough monsters in enough time to fill the bar. And once you successfully fill the bar, it spawns one final objective that you must defeat to complete the interaction. The first kind of encounter, the defense encounter, honestly is just not very fun. It's more like a blight encounter without the towers than breach. You have to defend this lady in the middle from waves of monsters that come running towards her. There's usually like 7 waves. There's little icons of buffs that you can click, which randomly appear, but that's all there is to it. As soon as your character is any bit powerful and geared up, it becomes completely trivial. All you end up doing is standing in the middle right next to this lady and holding down your attack button, waiting for the 7 waves to complete. It's just boring. Many times I would be half asleep with my eyes closed, waiting for it to end. And what do you get for completing it? Usually nothing. Just some blood for the tree. And if you're lucky, maybe like a tier 17 map drop or something. Or a womb gift, which are items used to spawn items on the tree. But usually it's just underwhelming and boring. To make matters worse, for some bizarre reason, whenever this shows up on your map, half of your map is covered in purple mystical walls that disintegrate away when you get close. So half of your map is full of cluttered bullshit that makes the visual clarity even worse. Why the hell is this a thing? It's so spammy and annoying. Sometimes I would do the breach encounter just to get this shit off my map. Just baffling design choice. Anyway, the other encounter you can do, the more traditional slowly opening breach one, is also really not that amazing or fun. It's a bit harder to see the ends of the circle compared to the original breach, and many map layouts do not even spawn enough monsters for you to succeed, even if you do kill them all. This one has 2 phases, the first phase of filling the bar, then the second phase, where it spawns either a few rares in the middle that you must kill to finish the encounter, or it spawns a breach boss to kill. The boss is kind of exciting, and sometimes can drop good stuff, but the rares are underwhelming, and feels more like a chore. First you gotta fill the bar, then you gotta rush back to find the rares in the center to finish the encounter. Overall though, I still think the original breach is better. The satisfaction of opening a breach on the original mechanic, and then running to the next one, as the first one shrinks, is gone here. You can't get multiple circle breaches back to back anymore, I don't think, and there's no customizing this new breach either. And the final kind of encounter you can do on the new breach mechanics is the Hive fortress. Sometimes, your maps will spawn this unique encounter, called the Hive fortress. You go inside and it's a big interior, which is like the same every time, where in the middle it's a defense breach. But first, actually, you should run around and fully explore the whole area, because there's these chests that drop womb gifts and other goods, and you can't really get them after you've completed the encounter. So each time you enter one of these Hive fortresses, you have to just run around clicking the chest first, which is boring and feels like busy work. Then, you go to the middle and do the same kind of defense encounter as before, except this time it's like 24 waves instead of 7. Sure, it's a bit more intense, it's a bit faster paced, but it's still the same feeling of monotony and boredom, just standing around defending this lady from waves of enemies. Really, again, it just gives a blight feeling instead of breach. When the encounter finally ends, which can take like 5 minutes, it's not uncommon to get no good drops from this. Maybe like 10C worth of stuff. So you spend 5 minutes doing a boring encounter and commonly get nothing rewarding for it. It doesn't feel great. In fact, at some point, I just started skipping the entire breach mechanic, as I found it so boring and unexciting and unrewarding. If that's not a failure of a league mechanic, I don't know what is. Anyway, once you've been mapping and collected lots of blood, you go teleport to the tree area to spawn items. The tree especially is good at creating lots of mid-gear to skyrocket your progression through mapping. 6 links, for example, are trivial to obtain now. You can infinitely respec the points on the tree to target exactly what kind of item you want. Creating a 6 link only takes a few attempts. Like usually in a league, obtaining a 6 link would be a significant milestone, but here, now it's trivial and easy and makes progression feel instantaneous, which also makes the price of 6 links worthless by day 2. It's not just 6 links though. Rare gear in general has now been devalued even more than usual. You want a pair of gloves with life regen, T1 life, resistance, and an armor base? No problem, just target it with the tree passives and spawn a few gloves and you'll find one. This is both good and bad. In one sense, it almost ruins the sense of progression, because by day 2, you've already solved most of your build, because you can easily target any item you want. But at the same time, it's nice to be able to do so. But it also makes the economy weird for rare items being so devalued so immediately on a new league. The tree can also spawn currency, and there's clips out there of people obtaining stacks of like 20 divines, which is cool I guess. You can also target spawn unique items, and there's clips of people obtaining mage bloods. And also there's new spin-off versions of uniques called Foulborn, which can have a slightly different stat, some of these Foulborn items being worth 50 divines. This is all cool and exciting, although I've never dropped anything expensive from the tree mechanic. I'm not sure how impactful overall the Foulborn stuff is though. I mean, I can't comment too much on it as I only played Righteous Fire, so I don't know all the possible options of varieties for all builds, but I get the general sense that the Foulborn stuff overall is a bit underwhelming with not too many exciting items existing. The breach mechanic also adds these grafts. These are little hands you can attach to your back and you get 2 of them. For the most part, these have a variety of skills and effects. Like they usually add some little passive, such as giving you a little shield, or exploding things around you, or for example, when I shield charge, it has this line of fire that covers enemies in ash, which is kinda cool. But most importantly, the passive regular stats that they add to your character is pretty impactful. Like for instance, I have 2 of these, and they give 40% fire damage each. So that's 80% increased fire damage from these grafts. It's a pretty big power creep. But other than that, at least for myself personally for Righteous Fire, I didn't find them that fun or interesting. It was just a nice little power boost on the side. But really, the issue with the tree is that once you progress past the early or middle mapping, it doesn't really have anything left to offer you. You no longer care about spawning mid-tier gear, as you're already way past this point of progression, like you've begun crafting your own expensive gear, or buying crafted gear worth dozens of divines. So this entire aspect of the tree is now moot. All that's left to do with it is to spawn some currency items, or come back here and there to try to drop a mage blood. This is more for the novelty meme moments. That's about it. So the whole tree mechanic is kind of underwhelming past like day 2. The last new exclusive feature of the Breach Keepers League is the new Ascendancy classes. These you only unlock at endgame maps by defeating various endgame bosses. Each boss has its own dedicated Ascendancy class you can choose to equip into your passive tree, and move your points around as you want. You can spec up to 2 points into this new Ascendancy. Well again, for one, I was playing RF, and not a single one of these classes were appealing or useful. And in fact, it's like multiple of these classes rewarded minion playstyles, for example, while other playstyles are seemingly ignored. Like none of them have anything to do with even buffing fire damage, or damage over time, for instance. How is that skipped over? I've not seen anyone really say any of these Ascendancies are very impactful. It seems like the overall sentiment from the community is that they are largely uninteresting and unexciting. I haven't really heard anyone talk about any interesting mechanics. It should have been much more impactful and interesting for all playstyles. If I've missed something here, let me know in the comments what interactions are interesting for these Ascendancies. And now in this part of the video, I will talk about the current state of the game, the endgame, the economy, and everything besides the new Breach League. In 3.27 Keepers League, they added asynchronous trade, and this is single-handedly the most impactful and exciting addition to the game, since probably ever. This alone kept me playing longer. It was a success in PoE 2, and it's the same system here in PoE 1. It's made gathering currency and progressing your character smoother than ever, since it's so easy to sell all your items without having the hassle of dealing with manual trades. Not much more has to be said on this point. It's just a very satisfying addition to the game, and if this league did anything right, and notable, it's this. Asynchronous trade plus the currency exchange alone skyrocketed my progression, and my ability to gather dozens of divines rapidly, unlike other leagues where I otherwise may have struggled trying to bulk trade and liquidate all my tiny items. Just on day 2 alone, I had dozens of divines, from doing so many trades and liquidating all of my small currency. And I've been playing since like 2011, and until now I've always sort of struggled a bit to gain large amounts of currency, because I found trading such a hassle, and now all of a sudden, I'm finding myself showered in currency. I've seen people call this the poverty league, but I'm just not seeing it. As long as you blast endgame maps with any sort of strategy, you will get lots of items, which you can easily convert into divines quickly, and be able to progress your character. As for all the other changes in the game, well, before the league launched, they made it sound like the meta would have a real shakeup, like a total overhaul of builds and farm strategies. But in reality, this was hardly the case. Sure, they changed up some builds, they buffed wands and made wanders a thing, more than ever, with it now being the most played archetype, and they buffed weapons such as the Nebulous, which builds like Righteous Fire now use to great effect and further adds progression goals and milestones. But other than this, and a few other minor tweaks, the state of meta builds is largely the same, and something I've seen the community not be too happy about. They were expecting something more of a foundational shakeup, and even the endgame farming strategies are largely untouched. Sure, they removed risk scarabs, and they did a small run over of the scarabs and tweaked a few things, and they nerfed some of the busted endgame farms, like Abyss Edifice farming, which was popular last league, and they also thankfully nerfed the explicit map modifier effect passive nodes on the Atlas tree, to try to counter the feeling that everyone is just shoehorned into getting all these map modifier effects on the Atlas tree. But the ending result is that largely the same strategies are the go-to best endgame ones, most notably Strongbox tier 17 farming. And even the few scarab changes they did didn't really add any new interesting farming strategies. They kinda just further buffed the currently existing ones, and made strongboxes even better. The go-to strategies are still either tier 17 scarab farming, getting as many scarabs as possible, full scarab on your Atlas tree, or you just go full strongboxes, and again tier 17, and use strongbox scarabs. Of course there's a handful of other strategies you can do, and of course they're going to be more subpar, but this is the state of the current meta. The main issue is virtually no one I've seen actually enjoys tier 17 mapping. Even the developers themselves acknowledge the state of tier 17 maps is, quote, a mess, and, quote, needs a rework.
Let's talk endgame, and I'm sure you're anticipating a discussion on tier 17 modifiers.
100%, they're not in the right spot.
Yeah.
I am of the, we need to go back to the drawing board a little bit here, because, we... And to be fair, we are, trying to band-aid it, but we can only do that for so long.
Right.
We kind of just need to reinvent something here a little bit.
Yeah.
A bunch of modifiers people hate. You've got this thing where because of the mods, you end up devolving down to the in-game strat becomes, as you said, stacking map mod effect and modifiers via risk.
Yeah.
And it's it's not fun. It's not ideal. We tried to narrow the gap with T16 and a half, so that kind of worked.
I think it needs a full redesign.
Yes.
So yeah, tier 17 is just really not that fun, and feels more like you're dragging yourself through glass, more so than encountering interesting challenges. Bullshit such as petrification shrines, or those big white circles that explode the whole map, or searing Exarch runes on the ground degenning you, or not being able to attack every 3 out of 10 seconds, to the T17 map bosses being a clusterfuck of tiny arenas and bullet hell spammy mechanics. It's not in a great spot.
What is this bullet hell bullshit?
To make matters worse, basically only one map in the game completely outclasses the rest. Tier 17 Fortress. This is because this map, for whatever silly reason, is filled to the brim with these barrels that automatically blow up when you attack near them. And allegedly these barrels provide like half of the loot you get. So it means everyone and their mother is running this map, and only this map, for the whole league. Honestly, they need to just delete the barrels from Fortress. On top of this, the boss of this map is notably the easiest of all the T17 bosses, with not many phases or mechanics. They need to make all the other T17 maps feel up to par with this one. It's like they said, the whole thing is a mess. This further makes tier 16.5 maps feel even more in an awkward spot and pointless. No one wants to run tier 16.5 maps because they want all the Fortress barrels. 16.5 maps, the devs also said, felt like another failed band-aid. This whole system needs a rework. Oh yeah, and the pedals are still untouched and stupid. Myself personally, I hate T17, so I just ran Harbinger and Beyond for the first week, and suddenly I found myself having dozens of Divines. So it's not like it's actually hard to get yourself enough currency to invest hundreds of Divines into your build. It's just the disparity between the top 1 to 3 farms and everything else is a bit strange. But I don't know why people call this the Poverty League. Sure, we miss a bunch of quant and pack size from the nerfed explicit map modifier effect on the Atlas, but like I said, it's easier than ever to liquidate all of your small currency that you pick up from maps, so I'll take it. But actually, having not so many busted endgame farming strategies, in turn, makes it so the state of the economy is actually pretty decent. Even weeks into the league, the price of Divines is still very stable and at a reasonable place. It means anyone running any strategy can comfortably get themselves lots of Divines, because if there's busted farming strategies that only 10% of the players can do, it massively inflates the price of Divines for everyone else that can't keep up with the inflation. So not having this makes it feel a lot more balanced and fun for everyone. Although the Giga min-maxers may not feel satisfied being unable to drop multiple Mage Bloods per map, so maybe that's what they mean by Poverty League. And at one point, the devs even dropped a mid-league patch to tweak a few Scarabs and the Breach mechanic, but honestly, this was so underwhelming, you can barely notice a difference. For some reason, it added even more walls to the Breach encounters. I'm not sure what else there is to really say about this patch, I barely realized anything different. Overall, I would say the new Breach mechanic is mostly a miss. I would not want it to go core, and I prefer the old Breach. The tree is an interesting idea, and maybe parts of the tree could be salvaged and reworked for future leagues in a minor way, but that's about it. The new Ascendancy classes also seem to mostly be a miss too. The visual clutter with the breach walls all over the place is also just annoying and ugly, and should never been a thing. But besides that, the overall state of the game is comfortable with the new asynchronous trade, and there is a decent variety of fun meta builds and playstyles like minions, melee, damage over time like RF, bows and wands. They all feel fun and viable now, which you could not really say in some previous leagues. Tier 17 maps still need a lot of work, but besides that, the general endgame progression, working through the Atlas, getting map completions, and progressing your gear and accumulating currency is just as satisfying as ever. Albeit a bit neutered this league, with the speeded up progression from the womb tree. So overall, I think the new Breach is mostly meh. Still though, the state of the game, getting constant quality of life improvements and adjustments, makes coming back every league a fun time, even if the current temp league mechanic is underwhelming. What did you think of this league? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Goodbye.